Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kartik. I'm one of the co-founders of ETHGlobal, and I'm super excited to welcome all of you to ETHGlobal Waterloo. This is not a conference. This is an ETHGlobal event. And if you've been to an ETHGlobal event before, you would know this, but these events are about getting developers into the Web3 ecosystem. Our goal is to onboard as many people as we can to build the future of Web3 and the decentralized web. And what makes this different is that this is a hackathon. Our focus is on builders. We care about learning, giving you the opportunity to get help in building whatever you're excited about. And this is a place for you to grow and develop your skills. And most importantly, we believe showing is way more important than telling, which is why everything we're going to talk about and do today and this weekend is going to be showing what we did and not talking about what we built. And we've been doing this since 2017. Whether it's in Argentina, South Africa, New York, London, Amsterdam, Mexico, San Francisco, India, Japan, Lisbon, or Waterloo again, all of this has been happening since 2017, and it all started right here in this city with ETH Waterloo. And I'm super excited to say that we're back, excited to be back here for the third time in the last 7 years. So with that, let's get started. There's over 900 attendees here this entire weekend, of which 650 of them are hackers from 29 different countries. And the best part is 47 of them are new developers to Web3. This is going to be one of our best events that brings in the most amount of people in the space. People are here from 6 different continents, and it's just constantly incredible to me to see these maps because it blows my mind when I see people all over the world trying to get into this ecosystem. On top of all these hackers, we have 136 ecosystem builders. These are our amazing partners and engineers from the companies and protocols that you're going to use and you like using, and 16 dedicated mentors who are here going to help you with anything that you need. We've already done a lot of these workshops. We're going to do 19 workshops on what's actually happening and how to use different protocols. And because this is not a conference, only 5 talks, all of them happened earlier today to tell you how to think about the next few months to years. And to top it all off, we're giving $250,000 in prizes. And for Canadians here, that's over $325,000. I want to thank 26 of our incredible partners for being the amazing people that make these events happen. So please join me in clapping as loudly as we can for everybody that I'm going to talk about, which is Gnosis Chain, WorldCoin, Airstack, ApeCoin, Polygon, The Graph, Filecoin, UMA, XTC, Sysmo, Unlock, Hyperlane, Near, Delve, XMTP, RIS0, EAS, Unsheath, QuantStamp, Compound, Maker, Lit, QuickNode, MetaMask, Highlight, ChainSafe. Thank you so much for being here. They're giving away so many amazing prizes, and we're going to talk about all those things. But before all of that, let's cover some key, quick logistics. The goal here is to make sure the next 10 minutes are jam-packed with all the information you need to know to be successful for the next 48 hours. So I want to talk about all the stuff about this venue, all the activities that we're doing, how you can get help, all the prizes, of course, you can win, all the workshops and talks, and how to catch up on all those things. If you're still looking for a team, we still have a lot of options for you, and most importantly, how judging and project submission is going to work. So before all of that, most important note, do not use Wi-Fi hotspots. Why? Because we finally figured out the internet situation, and it's actually pretty good now. And the second you turn on the hotspots, you make the internet slow for everybody else. So if something is not working on your internet, or if it's slow, the right action is to tell us where it's slow so we can fix it, but do not turn on hotspots. Keep that in mind. Let's talk about security. All of you should have your wristbands and a lanyard. Make sure that you have both of those things on you at all times. There will be security at the doors for exit and entry. If you lose it, we will not be issuing another wristband to you, which means that you will not be allowed back in the building. So just make sure you don't lose your wristband. We may issue you a badge, but definitely not the wristband. Do not cut it off. Make sure you have it on. And, of course, do not leave your belongings unattended. We are not liable for anything that gets stolen or lost. Please make sure that you are keeping your personal belongings, especially any expensive stuff, with you at all times. And while there's security, it does not mean that you can just leave your stuff and walk around or walk away from the venue and expect it again to be there always. We don't think this will happen, but just a notice. And most importantly, this is a university campus building. I want to also thank Glory University for making this possible. From 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., the front entrance that you all came from will be locked. So the back entrance, which is just at the end of the hall, is the way to exit and enter the building. So just keep that in mind. Don't worry, there'll be enough signs as well. But that's the most important thing you need to know about security. Let's talk about the venue. We have a lot of things happening on different floors, but the most important of all is just this floor we're on right now. This is the main auditorium and the main stage. There's a massive hacking area right outside this hall, and the 3 rooms that you already did workshops in, we'll be potentially doing some activities there. All the green spots on this map are where all of our partners are. You can go find any of them that are giving prizes or building incredible technologies. Talk to them, understand what they're doing, and this is where you can find all of them. You can also, at the my right, top right, bottom right, where the food is, you all probably saw dinner, that's where all the food will be for the entire weekend. And similarly, the venue also opens up to the second floor. There's more hacking spots on the second floor. There's also a chill room where you can just kind of lounge around. There'll be also sleeping areas there, and you have access to the second floor. Those are the only 2 floors that will be open and will be monitored and matter. On Sunday, judging will take place on the 3rd floor, so you don't have to worry about it. It's just that we'll redirect you to the 3rd floor, and we'll talk more about that in 5 minutes and also on Sunday. On top of all of this, there's a lot of things that we're doing. So we already had dinner, but we have a lot of late night snacks. We're going to make sure you're all fed. So at midnight tonight, we'll be giving away poutine for 1.5 hours for all of you that are staying around. And Saturday, tomorrow night at midnight, we'll be bringing in beaver tails. So make sure you enjoy all of that. And tomorrow, there'll be a massive ice cream truck for 3 hours here, right in the back parking lot. And don't forget to take a selfie. There's a lot of cool things that we're going on. You can get a digital photo emailed to you. We want to make sure all the teams get to see each other and take a photo and have a memorabilia for them after this hackathon, especially the before and after photo. Those are really always fun. And also tomorrow, we'll be bringing on some furry friends. If you want to hold a hedgehog or a lot of other surprise animals, you can find this out live tomorrow. All this is also on the website, and you can see where these things are going to be. This one is in workshop room 1, and that's what the rooms are going to be used for starting tomorrow. All right, most importantly, let's talk about communication. Everything that we're going to be doing and talking about is going to be on Discord, which means that if you are a hacker and you have not connected your Discord account on your dashboard, you will not see all the permissions to access all the channels. Discord is where all of our partners are. This is where all of our official announcements are going to be. This is where we're going to give all the updates around judging, project submission, food, all those things. And this is also where you can talk to any company and ask them for help. This means people who are here or you can find in the building, or some people are joining remotely and helping out and taking shifts across the world to make sure that any of your questions get answered. So keep an eye out there and make sure you monitor Discord. We'll be only communicating with all official announcements there. And all that is also on the website. For a quick reminder, the website is ethglobal.com/Waterloo. You can just head over there and you will see the schedule and everything else that you need to know about this event. The website will remain the source of truth, which means that if something is off track, we'll update the website first and then tell you that things are changing or some things are behind or anything else. And of course, you're in person. Talk to each other. If you're stuck and you can't get an answer on Discord, walk up to the person or the company or the mentor and get your question answered. We really want you to make sure that you take advantage of almost 1,000 of you in this building and really talk and interact and get to see what others are excited about. Let's go into the hackathon. How does the hackathon work? Officially, hacking has already begun. You can start working on your projects. You can work on your projects with up to 5 members. You don't have to have a team. You can work individually if you'd like. It's just always better if you have more support because of the time constraints. You can work with them and have maximum 5 people. You have the next 36 hours to hack, and submissions are due at 9 a.m. on Sunday. The rules are simple. Anything that you're going to be submitting on Sunday must have been worked on during the hackathon, which means everything you're doing should be done from scratch. You cannot add features to some personal project that you've been working on already, and only people who have been RSVP'd and came in are allowed to submit and are eligible for any prizes, which means that if you had somebody who couldn't make it and they're still listed on your team, they'll be automatically removed in 2 hours from your page. And if somebody was not listed on your team and you do win a prize, but they did work together and they were also in the building, that second person will not be receiving any prizes. So make sure that everybody who's on the project is listed on the team section on your dashboard. And of course, if you have any other questions, please feel free to find me or anybody else on the ETH Global team and ask away, and we'll help resolve any edge cases. The most common questions we get from this slide is, can I use existing code from other projects? Can I use boilerplates? Can I use libraries? Yes, you can fork anything that's already open source, but you cannot reuse your own personal project. So if you want to use something like Scaffold ETH or fork a front-end interface for existing DeFi app, all that is allowed and okay, but you cannot use your own project and work on it and add more features. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening for beginners and people of all skill sets. So don't be afraid, because half of you are already new to Web3 and want to make sure that we make you feel welcome and we help you with anything that you need. So don't be intimidated by anything. There's a lot of resources we put together on the Info Center page on your dashboard. You can see anywhere from recorded workshops on how to use different protocols to just copying GitHub repos that already do half the things for you from existing boilerplates. And of course, everything that we did today, which is all workshops and talks, were recorded. So if you missed anything, or if you want to pause and you were there and you forgot what they wrote down on the CLI, just go to ETHGlobal.tv, click on any of those workshop rooms, and just go rewind and watch the video and pause it as you please. You can catch up on all of that and thousands of other videos on how to use different protocols on ETHGlobal.tv and ETHGlobal YouTube. And the most important piece is, if you are still looking for a workshop or team, there is going to be another session right after I stop talking in an hour. That's going to be a lot of talking in workshop room 1. And we're going to get all the people who are still looking for a team or looking for somebody to join their team to kind of meet, and we'll help all of you find a project or get an idea or meet others who can help you build the project for this weekend. And the most important thing in terms of getting help is our mentors. There's 16 of them here. You can find them by this jacket. Grab anybody wearing this jacket. They're dedicated to help you with any of these questions, technical or otherwise. So if you need any help and you can't get any answers, find anybody wearing this jacket and ask them your questions. They'll be able to answer anything for you, whether it's about front-end, back-end, smart contracts, security, you name it. We have support for all of this, and this is also 24/7, so you can expect the same thing at 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. Now, let's go into judging. Also, everybody's super quiet, so am I like, is this making sense, or are you guys excited? Come on, you gotta give me something. There we go. I know a lot of you are students, but it's unusual to pay this much attention, okay? If you can remember one thing from the last 15 minutes, 9 a.m. is the only deadline that matters. Sunday, 9 a.m. is when we're gonna expect hundreds of projects coming in, so please make sure that you are submitting your projects on time. And when that happens, and after that happens, there's going to be 2 types of judging that's going to be important. There's a main judging track and a partner judging track. Both of these things are happening in parallel, and you will have to make a choice on which one you want to go for. What's the difference between these two? It's simple. If you pick the main judging track, and all this thing will be on the project submission form, you choose to be part of the top 10 finalist teams and also our prizes for the partners. If you only pick the partner judging track, then you only are qualifying for the prizes. If you only pick the partner judging, you have to go up to each of the partners and demo what you built to each of them. So if you want to qualify for 4 different prizes, you have to do 4 demos. If you do the main judging for the same 4 partner prizes, you're going to have to do 4 of those demos plus 1 other one on the 3rd floor. That means choose wisely on what you want to optimize for. Don't pick 20 projects and 20 prizes. It's not going to work out well for you, and we're going to cut off judging on the time that we have, which is 12:30, but it's going to scale accordingly to the number of prizes you want. All of that is just on the parallelization. The only thing that you want to keep in mind for all these pieces is you have to make sure that you don't forget to specify what prizes you want to qualify for, because if you don't do that, there's no way for us or anyone else to know what you wanted to do. So make sure you select the right prize, and make sure you go to each of those tables for all of our partners and present it to them. They will already know and will be expecting you. And you can do this thing out of order. Just because both of these things are parallel does not mean there's an assigned spot. It's going to be first come, first serve. So if you feel like there's a massive lineup on this side or on the main judging, great. Just go down, pick to anybody else, and go join the line back again. This doesn't have to be in order or assigned. Neither of them are one or more important than the other. If you see a line, optimize for your own time and just go to the next table that you have to demo on. And one really important thing. The selection of your prize is going to be based off of the quality of what you submit, not the demo, which means that it's not just enough that you do a demo on the table that works really well. You have to put all the details in on the submission form. You have to describe how you did something, what it does under the hood, have enough screenshots to explain what's going on, and that is going to be the primary thing that we'll be looking at in addition to whatever you demo to them. So to make sure that you keep all of that in order and efficient for yourself, we'll give you some guidelines. You will have 4 minutes to demo for each partner and the main judges. So if you have 5 projects, or if you have 5 partners and you want to do main judging, you have to do 6 times 4. That's how much time you're going to have to spend on judging. And we really recommend that you just record a video of your demo just in case something goes wrong, so you can at least play it while you are trying to fix it live. And really, do not do this thing last minute. We've seen it go wrong a lot of times. We've seen people realize that they need way more time than they thought. You will be able to see what the whole form looks like tomorrow morning. Just check out all the tabs and just be prepared for what you need to write up and the details that you need to give to really tell us what prizes you want to go for. And all that is happening on your dashboard. So as long as you're logged in, you'll be able to see all these things, and we're going to remind all of you a lot. So I'm nearly done with all this. Before all of the logistics are wrapped up, I want to talk about the code of conduct. This is an in-person event. We want to make sure that everybody follows the same rules. And you can check out all the rules on ethglobal.com/rules. There's a couple of things that matter. First of all, in summary, please be respectful for each other. Harassment will not be tolerated in any form. If you feel like somebody is treating you or somebody else unfairly, tell us about it and we'll take immediate action. And it's not just about harassment or respect. In terms of the rules, anything that you build here is solely owned by you. You will own all the IP, so no partners, not us, not anybody else, no the university has any rights to anything that you create here. Each of the team members are equal owners of everything that you built. And if you need any help, if you have any other questions that we haven't answered, ping us on Discord, ping us here in person, find us after 10 minutes after I'm done, and we'll be able to answer all these things for you. All right, those are all the logistics. Let's get the rest of the show started. So what I want to do now is bring on some amazing partners up here on stage to tell you more about who they are, what they're excited to do, and why they are excited to talk to all of you and be at this event. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on our very first partner, which is Penryn, to talk about WorldCoin. Please give him a big round of applause.
Hello, everyone. I'm Penryn, or Ian. I do developer relations at WorldCoin. So, here to talk a little bit about WorldCoin, a little bit of information on our bounties, things like that. So, WorldCoin started out as a project that wanted to give everyone in the world a little bit of cryptocurrency to introduce them to the digital economy. The problem is, how do you know who or what is a real and unique person? Basically, the Sybil resistance problem. We need to make sure that everyone who gets a little bit is a real person, and that each real person only gets their fair share. So, to solve that, we built WorldID, our privacy-preserving proof-of-personhood protocol. WorldID makes sure you're real when you get verified at the orb. It checks your unique iris code, a representation of the entropy of your iris, and verifies your WorldID, your self-custodial identity stored on your mobile device. This orb has gone through lots of different revisions since early 2020 when it began development. And within WorldID, you can have multiple proof-of-personhood credentials. While the orb is sort of the gold standard, highest certainty that you're a unique human, we also support verifying with a phone number, right? Simple way to prove that you at least have that, although it's a much weaker proof-of-personhood credential. And we'll be adding support for more and more proof-of-personhood credentials over time, and it will be a completely open protocol where anyone can make attestations to the fact that you are a real human. WorldID is privacy first, it's decentralized, and it's open source, right? We don't collect any personally identifying information. We don't ask your name. We don't ask for your email. We never ask to see your ID or anything like that. It's decentralized progressively, and it's open source right now. All the smart contracts are open source. The developer portal, our front end SDK, everything like that is available on GitHub right now. There's lots of different use cases for World ID, right? Civil resistance is a problem that affects a broad variety of different things, right? So social media, you want to know this account is a real person and not a bot. Customer incentives is one that I personally like a lot, because if you can be very confident that someone's a unique human, right? Maybe you give them a 25% discount on their first order. Whereas if they're just phone verified, you know, you can be a lot less certain, but you want to give them something, so you give them a 5% discount on their first order. World ID is super easy to integrate. I gave my workshop earlier, but if any of you want to learn more, I'm more than happy to talk to you at our booth. We have template repositories available on GitHub. Right? There's two main ways to use World ID: sign in with WorldCoin and anonymous actions. Sign in with WorldCoin, your identity is specific to the context of that app, and they can know that you're a real human without needing to know anything else about you. And anonymous actions are really useful for civil resistance, both on and off chain, and as well have that proof of personhood. So we have $20,000 worth of prizes, $5K to the best overall, $2,500 each to best governance app, most creative, best AI use case, best sign in with WorldCoin app. I made a slight typo here. We have two $1,000 honorable mentions and then a $3,000 prize pool split among all of the submissions that implement World ID correctly. We have early access to our SDK for hackers. You can also get access to this at our booth, because right now we're still in beta and there's still a wait list for the SDK, so you're getting a nice little reward for being here at the hackathon, and you can continue to use this after the hackathon as well. I'll leave that up for a little bit longer because I still see phones. All right. And then this link gets you access to a bunch of different resources: our documentation, our developer portal, those template repositories I mentioned, information on our bounties, and how to contact us if you have any questions. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. All right, next up, I want to bring on Dosh to talk about Gnosis Chain. Please give Dosh a big round of applause. There we go.
All right, hope y'all can hear me. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to stand before you today and talk about a blockchain that is reshaping the frontier of decentralized applications, Gnosis Chain. Imagine a world where transaction fees are no longer a barrier to entry, where developers can build projects, launch applications, and design protocols without the fear of prohibitive costs or censorship. That's the world that Gnosis Chain is helping to create. A world that champions decentralization, credible neutrality, and resilient networks. But Gnosis is more than just a technology. It's a community of pioneers, explorers, and innovators. People like you who see beyond the present and into the possibilities of what it could be. Your creativity, your vision, and your dedication are what truly drive this revolution. In our hands, Gnosis Chain isn't just a tool, it's an opportunity. An opportunity to shape the future, to redefine the boundaries of innovation, and to create a world where the power of blockchain is accessible to all. And today, we have $20,000 in prizing for building on this chain. The tracks for our hackathon include the best AI project, Hashi, the new standard for native bridges, and Safe, everyone's favorite multisig. As we venture into this exciting new era, remember, our strength lies in our unity, our innovation in our diversity, and our future in the apps we build today. Let's seize this opportunity. Let's shape the future. See you on chain. Thank you.
Thanks, Dosh. Inspiring words. All right. Those were two of our amazing partners, and when we looked at all the information about who's coming here and what they're excited about, we realized that there's a lot of you who are just getting into the space and wanted to understand what could be possible. So to make sense of all of that, we decided to do a really interesting talk. What we're going to spend is I'm going to invite Vitalik here on stage to tell you about what are the possible ideas that you can think of. Not just yet, there you go. We're going to focus the next 30 minutes on things that you should think about building in this space where we see there's a lot of progress that could be made, a lot of things that could be made better, and things that are just not getting the attention that we'd like to get. And all of that should help you get some ideas for your hackathon projects and hopefully even other bigger projects that can turn into more than just side projects. So without further ado, please welcome Vitalik on stage.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. So today I wanted to talk about some things that I've talked about in various contexts over the last year or so, but basically the focus is on like what kinds of things really does it make sense to start working on right now, and what kinds of things are actually really accessible to people that are even, just getting into the space right now. So the big picture to me is that Ethereum's 2 decades, basically the last 10 years, are solving problems in theory, right? So a lot of discussion around switching from proof of work to proof of stake, a lot of discussion around improving scalability, a lot of discussion around solving privacy problems, around improving security, various other things. But it was still fairly theoretical. The number of people actually using the blockchain is fairly small for most of this period. But then the next decade needs to be much more of a focus on solving very concrete problems that people in the real world have. So there are very many users of Ethereum, crypto, all of these things already today, right? But I think the way that it looks to me is that in many places, very few people have found a use for Ethereum or other blockchains, aside from trading digital monkeys. In many places, very many people have found uses for it, but they're largely using centralized exchanges. Just telling a story, this picture, minus the anonymous masks to protect other people's privacy, is from my trip to Argentina back in 2021. And I remember visiting, and I remember just seeing the really huge Ethereum community, crypto community more general, developer community, just the sheer number of people using ETH, using all kinds of cryptocurrencies to save money, which is actually a really big need for them because of the currency situation in the country, and even people just accepting it for payments, right? Like, I just randomly walked into a coffee shop, and it just happens, the guy just happens to know a lot of things about cryptocurrency. He happens to have a Binance wallet, and I asked, like, hey, can we pay with ETH? And he said, sure. So huge amounts of adoption, but there's a catch. And the catch is that even though there's a huge amount of crypto adoption, a lot of it is like actually Binance wallet adoption, right? So basically, lots of people who are using both Ethereum and other crypto things, they're actually using it through a centralized intermediary. Now, why are they doing this, right? So centralized exchanges are cheap, meaning if you want to just send someone money inside one of these, a centralized system, you have 0 fees. It's convenient. In particular, payments are instant. Binance to Binance transfers instant. When I paid out of an Ethereum wallet, the transaction took, I think, something like 2 to 5 minutes to confirm. And now this is actually something where we have made some improvements, right? So who here has used Ethereum before 2020? Who here has used Ethereum in the last 6 months? Who here possibly has noticed how it has become somehow much easier to get transactions reliably confirmed quickly? This has happened because of 2 protocol changes. One of them is something called EIP 1559, which is this very kind of weird economic technocratic thing that has a lot of interesting math behind it. But the basic thing that it does is it changes the fee market so that instead of requiring a fixed amount of transactions in every block, the blocks are allowed to be bigger and smaller and kind of adjust to very short-term changes in demand, right? And instead of keeping a constant block size, the protocol keeps a kind of a constant transaction fee, or what's called the base fee within a block, and that adjusts over time, right? So because of this, instead of a transaction taking some random amount of time that's often minutes, a transaction can be included in about 1 or 2 blocks. And then what the merge did is, as a weird byproduct of statistics and the difference between Poisson distributions and getting a block every 12 seconds, it turns out that the average amount of time you have to wait until your transaction gets included into a block is divided by 2. It's only half as much. So if everyone here is in math, proof assignment, prove it. Due date 72 hours from now, go. But the point, so like, Ethereum has made a lot of strides on this question already, actually, but when I was in Argentina at the time, the merge had not yet happened, EIP 1559 had happened, but the wallet I was using did not yet support it. And now that wallet actually does support it, right? So, centralized exchanges are cheap, convenient, protect the user from mistakes. If you screw up, you can go talk to their customer service, maybe KYC again, and you'll get your money back. With Ethereum wallets, that's something that, at least with the status quo, you're not really able to do. You have your 12-word seed phrase, and if you lose your 12-word seed phrase, you're screwed. If someone else takes a photo of your 12-word seed phrase, congrats, they have all your money, right? So centralized exchanges don't really have these issues. Now, there's a darker side to centralized exchanges, right? Who here recognizes some of the people in this photo? Yeah, right. So centralized exchanges are, also sometimes, not very trustworthy. They, do stuff, and sometimes they decide that they're better at having fun with your money than you are. Okay. So how to basically, there's this is a space that is all about decentralization. What is decentralization? We are building systems where you cannot be rug pulled, right? Now, there's many kinds of being rug pulled. There is, having all of your money stolen from you. There is being locked out of a PayPal account and them holding your money for 180 days with no recourse. There is being locked out of a social media platform with no recourse. There's all kinds of rug pulling that happens, right? And in a decentralized system, you're supposed to have programmatic rules that are transparent, that kind of describe the processes under which things happen in whatever application you're participating in, right? And it's a nice dream, and it's a good, and it's good to try to put more control and power back in the hands of users and communities as opposed to these faraway centralized actors. But there are challenges, right? So I think some of these challenges are kind of the fundamental philosophical challenges, but some of these challenges I think people don't appreciate the extent to which they are technical problems that can be technically solved. They just haven't been properly technically solved yet, right? So one is scalability and fees, right? So when I paid at that coffee shop in Buenos Aires, the transaction fee was like something around $3 or $4, right? If it was a Binance to Binance transfer, it would be $0. Now, back in 2013, I remember there was this movement that was really trying hard to get people to accept Bitcoin as a consumer merchant payment mechanism, just for people to like pay in restaurants, pay in coffee shops. In Berlin, there was even this district, Kreuzberg, where people made this movement to convince a huge amount of restaurants in one region to start accepting Bitcoin. This was called the Bitcoin Kiez. I actually went to a couple of these places back in the day. There was a burger place, there was this nice vegan restaurant, there were a couple of other ones. And there was this like really lovely movement, but then that died down over time. Why did it die down? Basically, it's just transaction fees, right? Back in 2013, the main pitch for why you're supposed to accept Bitcoin instead of accepting credit cards is like, well, credit cards charge like 2.9% on every transaction, right? Actually, PayPal charges 2.9% on every transaction. For international payments, PayPal actually charges 2.9% plus 3.9% plus more on foreign exchange fees. It might have changed. It might have changed since then. I actually don't know, right? But this was like the pitch back then, and it was true back then. And the problem is that, like, well, the whole fees being low thing basically stopped being true, right? So that's a deal breaker, right? Like, lots of applications that are totally fine and that make a huge amount of sense if the transaction fee is negligible, stop being true if the transaction fee is $8.43. Who here is interested in using alternatives to Twitter? Twitter. Who here would be interested in using alternatives to Twitter if registering your account on that alternative cost $8.43? $69.12. $384.41. Okay, so, we got some true believers, which is good, right? But, the point is that, like, fees are kind of a boring topic, but they are a killer of things that otherwise would be extremely promising. And I think the corollary of that, which is really powerful, is that people should not assume a category of applications has failed just because it has failed in an environment where setting anything up costs $8.31. Problem number 3, privacy. Who here just loves the idea of broadcasting to all their friends and future friends and family and the government and to every company exactly who they're making what kinds of payments to? Okay, we got some true believers, which is good. But, privacy is valuable, right? So the other challenge is kind of making all of these happen while keeping Ethereum recognizably Ethereum, right? So what I mean by this is that there's lots of different groups in Ethereum that are building lots of different stuff. And that's good, that's beautiful. We have an open ecosystem. We have lots of groups operating independently, and it's possible for new people to come in and start building independently without asking for permission, without, you don't have to apply for an API key. But one of the challenges is that there is the possibility that, like, things end up branching off into totally separate systems that don't really kind of intersect with each other and that look very different and that have very different properties from what already exists, right? So good scaling is being able to do what you do now, but paying 10 or 100 times lower transaction fees. Bad scaling is when you have some totally new thing and people tell you, ta-da, this is Ethereum, this scales, but it just looks like a totally different thing, and if your friends turn out to have used a different way of scaling Ethereum, you're not compatible with him, and there's no way to, like, move between these things, and it's, like, not clear what the properties of these things are, and it just turns into a mess of confusion, right? So there's also a challenge here, which is, like, more like a coordination challenge, right? Which is that, like, actually, making sure that all of these different pieces, the scalability pieces, the account security pieces, the privacy pieces, actually work together with each other, right? And this is difficult, right? But this is something that I think we can start moving towards. So one concrete example. Who here wants to build a wallet? Wallets are fun, So in the previous decade of Ethereum, it was enough for a wallet to just support sending people ETH, showing your QR code so other people could send you ETH, and possibly logging into a mini web browser so you could go access some dApps, right? In the future, this is not going to be enough for a wallet, right? A wallet that actually makes sense in a post-scalability world is a wallet that needs to support the Ethereum Layer 1 and also at least all of the major Layer 2 protocols that are being built on top of Ethereum. Cross-Layer 2 transfers need to be built in. If I have all of my money on Optimism and you have an account that's or you want your money on Arbitrum, then like I should be able to click send, and that should automatically route my money through some kind of cross layer 2 exchange protocol so that it gets to you, right? And like this is something that should happen automatically. This is something that like you should not have to go and personally fumble yourself and like figure out what hop.exchange is and how to use it. It should all be behavior that just happens as part of the send button. A way for recipients to express how he wants to get paid. This is another thing, right? It's looking like addresses are not going to be enough, right? An address, just 20 bytes, but your address where, right? Like, do you want to be paid on Optimism? Do you want to be paid on Polygon? Or maybe you're happy being paid on, ZK Sync and Kakarot and Polygon, but someone else has coins on Kakarot and Scroll and Arbitrum, and it turns out that Polygon is the new section, and then you just make a direct transfer there, right? Like this is the sort of stuff that you just need to do, right? And this is the sort of stuff that like TradFi does under the a lot under the hood, right? Like who here has used a credit card internationally, right? Like there's a lot of these, like under the hood cross-exchange protocols going on, and realistically, cross layer 2 Ethereum has to do the same sort of stuff, right? Now, the nice thing about this kind of project is that you don't have to invent your own cryptography to do it, right? You don't have to like build your own big thing from scratch. All you have to do is just like hook together a couple of protocols that already exist, right? You just have to, hook together existing tools for accessing Optimism, existing tools for accessing, ZK Sync, and you want to, hook in Hop protocol, possibly a couple of other routing protocols, have the possibility of adding more routing protocols in the future, and like have a send button that kind of puts a bunch of actually routes things correctly, possibly create your own format for how to provide the information of where you want to get paid, and then if people like it, then you go and 2 months later you might end up making your own ERC. So it's like actually I think within range for a hackathon team, but like this is this type of stuff is the sort of thing that I think we need more of. Another wallet challenge, social recovery and multisig. So if you just go to my blog vitalik.ca, and if you just like Control F for social recovery, you can find like this incredibly long post I wrote on the topic. But basically the kind of summary of this idea is that kind of existing ways of doing wallets are just incredibly insecure, right? So, most wallets are what's called EOAs, externally owned accounts. They're accounts that are controlled by a private key, right? The reason they're called externally owned is because other types of accounts are controlled by a piece of code, which is part of Ethereum, right? So the problem with EOAs is they're controlled by a single key, and if you lose that key, you're screwed. If someone else steals that key, you're screwed. If you make multiple backups of your key to reduce the chance that you're going to lose the key, that increases the chance that someone's going to steal your key, right? So, it's actually not a very good design for a huge number, a number of people, right? I mean, honestly, it's not even sufficient for me, right? Like, I keep my money in, multisigs. So what is a multisig? It's a wallet where there's multiple keys, and you need some portion of the keys to move the money. Social recovery is a kind of a closely related concept. Basically, you have a wallet that has one key, but there's a set of backup keys that are going to be owned by other people, and that set of backup keys has the ability to change the main key if you lose it. Right, so social recovery protects only against loss, not against theft. Multisig protects against loss and theft. The advantage of social recovery is just because you only need one key to sign transactions normally, it's easier, right? So social recovery is good for like a hot wallet, and multisig is good for like a cold wallet, right? Like multisig is great for, like storing your life savings, for example, but you don't want to store your life savings in something where the stuff that's needed to just drain all of your money away sits on one device, right? So making a wallet that's like actually good at supporting this. And then privacy. So privacy is also an important challenge, and don't want to get into this in detail, but there's a lot of like really fascinating privacy technology that's really worth working on. So, okay, do people hear me? Yeah, no, thank you so much, Patrick, for offering. Yeah, for offering a microphone swap at a 1-to-1 ratio and not even asking for a liquidity fee. This is great. So, identity, right? So, ENS on layer 2 is happening, right? So, ENS, who here has a .eth name? Yay! So, it's like, a big part of the emerging Ethereum identity layer, right? If you want to have a name and you want that name to be decentralized and to like really be controlled by you and not sort of be dependent on some other entity, then ENS, decentralized system on top of Ethereum, it is the way to do it. Now, one of the problems with ENS is that it's expensive, right? Now, there is the registration fee, there is the $8 a month, and that's about as large as regular DNS fees. But there's also transaction fees, right? So the last time I did an operation to do something with my ENS, I think the last thing I did was when I published a new blog post, and because my blog is mirrored to IPFS, I use it. I need to like actually update the IPFS record inside of the contract on ENS, which contains the IPFS hash, and that's a transaction, and I think that cost me about $8, right? So now, what if transaction fees go up by a factor of 10 to like what they were last year or 2 years ago, right? Then that transaction fee of $8 is going to be a transaction fee of $80, right? So ENS on layer 1 is expensive and may get more expensive. ENS on layer 2 is a solution, right? We're doing layer 2s, layer 2s are scaling, but we want Ethereum to we want applications that people actually use to actually benefit from the scaling, right? And there's like lots of hidden assumptions throughout the Ethereum ecosystem that kind of assume that you're on layer 1. And if we want people to actually benefit from layer 2 scaling, then we kind of really need to start breaking down those assumptions, and we need to start looking at the important applications and basically seeing, like how do we make them layer 2 friendly. So this is a screenshot from something called optinames.xyz, and this is built on a protocol called CCIP. What this does is basically you have a smart contract on layer 1 which owns the domain ecc.eth. And then that contract has logic that is based on the CCIP protocol that basically says if you have a subdomain of ecc.eth and you're looking for that subdomain, then you can go to this other place and you can basically check what that subdomain actually is on the Optimism network, right? So instead of doing everything on the layer 1, subdomains of ecc.eth all get managed, updated, created, destroyed on Optimism. And so if you were to have your domain.ecc.eth, updating any records only requires being on Optimism. It does not require any layer 1 transaction. And so from a gas fee perspective, everything is vastly cheaper. Now, this is the Optimism one. I have asked a couple of other layer 2s if they have equivalents, and like a couple of weeks ago, the answer from the 1 or 2 that I asked was not yet, but I imagine they will very soon, and very possible some others already do, which is great, right? But like this is one example, I think, of something that is good and that we need more of, which is the ecosystem like really actually adapting to layer 2 scaling and making sure the layer 2 scaling actually translates into real benefits for users, which is great. Now, other things in Ethereum identity, right? So this is an application called ZooPass. Basically, it was developed at Zuzulu, which was this kind of experiment in the spring in Montenegro, which tried to basically create a kind of pop-up sort of a mini city that combines, Ethereum and zero knowledge tech and a couple of other themes. But one of the really interesting things was kind of, this zero knowledge aspect, right? So this QR code contains a zk snark. It contains a zero knowledge proof, right? And that's what that zero knowledge proof says is it proves that I am one of the residents of Zuzulu without revealing which one I am, right? So this is the in-person use case, right? The in-person use case is basically you have this thing on your phone, and because you have the thing on your phone, then you can go and you can show it, and like you can use things like this as proof that you have the right to enter someplace, and without actually revealing your identity every time and letting yourself be tracked everywhere. It's the sort of thing that like really ties into kind of a lot of e-government stuff, except it allows you to do it without compromising privacy, which is unfortunately the default that a lot of these schemes end up running into. And there's also an online component, right? There's applications like Zoopol, for example, where basically you log in with ZooPass, and so only Zuzalula residents were able to log in, and you're able to get one account, so you're able to make one vote, right? It's a polling system. Anyone can start a poll. Anyone can vote on a poll. You're able to make one vote without revealing who you are, but at the same time proving that you are a legitimate voter and that you can't make more than one vote, right? So it's a privacy-preserving voting system that is anonymous, but at the same time, it ensures that the Kremlin can't go and vote 58,200 times. So this is, basically, I think there's like a big story here, which is that with cryptography, we actually do, have the ability of giving people very high levels of privacy and anonymity, but at the same time, for actually achieving a lot of these, security gains that, the sort of pure, trying to achieve, anonymity by doing no verification at all is not able to achieve, right? So we can get like more privacy and more security at the same time. And this is also kind of like part of, the growing Ethereum identity stack. Other attestation protocols, this is the Ethereum Attestation Service, EAS. So you can also make off-chain attestations about things. And these are real like systems that are increasingly talking to each other, right? So we have these tools, right? We have names, and names that are becoming cheap. We have a growing list of really fascinating ZK tools and growing usability for those ZK tools. We have off-chain attestations, we have on-chain attestations. What can we do with all of this? One example is you can use this technology in decentralized social media platforms, right? So lots of people want to use a Twitter alternative. Who here wants to make a Twitter alternative? Okay, no, that's good. It's actually better not to have too many hands because we don't want to have like, too many Twitter alternatives where each one only has like, 50 people on it, and at some point people just get bored and go back to Elon land. But the Farcaster exists, Lens exists, a couple of others exist too, and you can some of these are starting to integrate more and more of these Ethereum features, right? So with Lens, you can use your existing ENS name. Farcaster, I think, is going in the direction of ENS integration with CCIP. And then the other thing you can do is instead of trying to copy Twitter, you can try to do some totally new thing designed for new use cases, right? So one of the concerns that I have with kind of this alt-Twitter approach that everyone is taking is that, it's standard startup advice that if you want to make something that really takes over from an incumbent, you can't make something that's 1.1x better. You have to make something that's 10x better. You have to you can't just appeal to sort of niche ideological appeals. You have to create a whole new category of activity, right? Facebook did not kill MySpace by copying MySpace. Twitter did not copy Reddit, and if we think about what is the biggest new social media thing that actually has taken over very recently, well, realistically it might be TikTok, right? So that's TikTok is not just a different way to yell 280 characters, right? And so one other way to think about the social media problem is okay, let's create something that's Web3 native, that is decentralized, that has these kind of open and transparent rules that are executed within the software, but that is designed for some other use case. One interesting, very natural use case is kind of discussion and governance within communities, right? So existing DAOs are a good potential user of this, and possibly even new communities that wants to kind of turn into, communities that use various Web3 tools to organize themselves could also be a nice use case. So why? Alternatives to opaque centralized mechanisms for some aspects of moderation, right? So anti-spam, proving that you're a human and not a bot. Lots of Ethereum-based reputation stuff that can be used for this already. Like, just having an existing address on chain requires you to have paid a transaction fee. Like, that's a significant degree of anti-spam already, right? Like, okay, if you look, so there's this website called buyaccs.com, right? It's probably worth just like making it transparent, BUYACCS.com. You can go and just like buy Google accounts, Twitter accounts, and like all kinds of things, right? And they accept Bitcoin and ETH for payments, so you know, it's all great, right? And the average cost of an account on these is like somewhere around $6 or $7, right? So like this is what the spammers are paying, right? And I mean, realistically, the spammers have like far better tools than this, right? So if you can, like having a new account on Ethereum that has paid a transaction fee, like right now, that's like already, you know, better anti-spam than what social media networks, or as good anti-spam as what social media networks are providing, right? And then on top of that, you can look at like, do people have, you know, popes? Do people have some kind of proof of humanity stamp? You know, if you want to integrate WorldCoin, you know, have people scan their eyes. Like, you know, I mean, I guess my opinion for that is like that should not be mandatory, but you know, an option, why not? If people want, to, you know, you could use some kind of function over all of the different identity things that people have. You can use EAS attestations. With ZooPass, you're able to make zero-knowledge proofs that prove things about what are called stamps, which is kind of a pope or kind of an attestation system that exists within the ZooPass system. And like you can prove things, you can prove some function over the stamps, what stamps you have, without revealing everything about yourself, right? So there's like a lot of alternatives for like anti-spam that you can combine together that are like very Web3 native even today. Reputation, like helping users identify, you know, which accounts are worth listening to and which accounts are not serious. Also, just another benefit, you know, the user owning their identity and identity being portable, and the connections you make within the system being something that's easily portable if you want to switch to another application. Better tools to protect against bad actors while preserving privacy. I wrote this post on privacy-preserving applications on ZK Snarks about a year ago. And one of the really fun ideas you have here is you can have a message board which is anonymous, but at the same time enforces a rule that says that each user basically has a limited amount of reputation, and if some moderation system, which could be anything, could be centralized, could be decentralized, could be downvotes, could be whatever, flags some particular post, then you know you lose 1 point, and your account can only survive for as long as you still have points, right? So like you don't have to choose between being you know, totally transparent and being 4chan. You can like literally explore every single point along the spectrum, right? So a lot of like these very powerful new possibilities become available because of zero-knowledge proofs, and like I you know, highly encourage people to try to like look at and explore these kinds of things. DAOs. So, DAO governance is like a really hard problem, right? Like, we've had lots of DAOs, but one of the challenges that I see is there's like a lack of originality in terms of like, you know, thinking about what makes a DAO, right? Like, a lot of people have this mentality that like all you do is you create a thing, you issue a token, you give your friends some of the token, they can start selling the token around, and then if you have tokens, you can vote, right? And there's like a lot of people who think that this is a DAO, right? And I have to admit that like, that is totally not what I had in mind when I started thinking about the concept back in 2013, right? So DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, like basically, you know, organizations that have like ways of organizing people in communities that involve, you know, using some kind, you know, blockchain and smart contract-based technology, right? And there's like a lot of really powerful things that you can do there, but like you really want to go beyond using coin voting because coin voting is broken in all kinds of ways. Now, first advice of doing DAO governance is like, governance is hard And if you can avoid it, then you should probably avoid it. So creating singletons, right, is hard, and it invites political problems. As soon as you create a singleton, like as soon as you create a single thing that is logically centralized, like even if it's architecturally and politically decentralized, if it's like a logically centralized single thing that looks like an actor, then that invites political problems. People are going to have expectations about how it's going to act fairly. People are going to have complaints about like, was the thing set up fairly? Was this community pre-mined to like favor some group of people that I'm not part of? Right, so creating singletons is hard, invites political problems. If you can go without a singleton at all, then that's a good idea. But sometimes having a singleton is unavoidable, right? And so try to move beyond token-based governance, as I've already mentioned. Token-based governance just has all kinds of vulnerabilities, all kinds of just problems in how it ends up actually working in practice. One, I think, question you should ask is, are you decentralizing for robustness, or are you decentralizing for efficiency, right? Are you defending against internal threats? Are you defending against external threats and trying to solve for censorship resistance? Are you trying to decentralize because you want a mechanism that helps more people provide input into the decision and by doing that create decisions that are better for everyone? Are you trying to make a decentralized system because you see that that will be more efficient in some way? Or decentralization for interoperability, right? This is a third category. You make a decentralized thing so that it can interface better with other decentralized things, right? If you're making a decentralized protocol, you don't want to build it on top of centralized APIs. Therefore, if you want to serve other decentralized applications, often you have to be decentralized too, right? So I think it's like always good to look at like which of these reasons for decentralizing things you're going for. And depending on which one of these you're going for, like the kind of governance that you're going to have is often going to look very different, right? So this is also something that's worth thinking about. Experimenting with new mechanisms, right? So quadratic funding is this interesting thing that Glenn Weil and mostly, with some involvement from me, came up with back in 2018. Is really nice. It's this kind of sort of democratic, sort of market-based way of funding public goods. The idea basically is that you have some central pool of funding, and it serves as a matching fund. And it allows other people in the community to donate to projects, and the central pool of funding matches projects that get donations from other people. Now, the matching works in this interesting way where basically it uses this clever formula to compute the matching, where the practical effects are that smaller contributions get a bigger matching ratio than bigger contributions, and everyone's matching ratio is greater if a larger number of distinct people contribute to a project, right? So things that are actually public goods to a wide group of people get a larger matching ratio than things that only benefit a few people. So this is like a really nice idea, and there are like various decentralized mechanisms that are actually building on top of this or using this as their mechanism. There is a CLR fund which uses zero-knowledge proofs to implement this in a privacy-preserving way. So a lot of really nice things happening. Also, retroactive funding. So retroactive funding is this idea that like instead of giving grants to people because you think that they're promising and they will do good work, you give prizes to people after they've done good work. And the idea is that retroactive funding is easier to implement because it's easier to understand what already was good than to try to agree on what will be good in the future. And the general idea of this is that if you have a retroactive funding mechanism, then you can combine that with an investment ecosystem, right? Like you can basically, have people actually, give investments into projects, and they too can get rewarded if a project ends up really succeeding and gets a very large retroactive payout, right? Or you can have independent developers where if there are multiple different retroactive funding systems in the ecosystem, then they can start working on projects, and they know that if they succeed enough, then they are going to get some level of reward. So a lot of interesting stuff happening with retroactive funding. Optimism has done 2 rounds of retroactive funding so far. And they've done like these very big rounds. Like the last one gave out, I think, about $20 million. And it just like gave funding to a whole bunch of projects that like did really good and valuable things to the ecosystem. Like I believe even some amount of funding ended up going to the people who created the catch hash function, and like, it ended up being a pretty substantial grant, right? So a lot of like really good experiments happening with that too, right? So this is kind of this other side of really interesting stuff that you could do with crypto, right? Like you can create these mechanisms to try to, solve problems that have to do with like things that are actually good, not being rewarded enough and not being able to compete with big exchanges offering people, like $2.5 million. So a lot of like really, a lot of really amazing opportunities here too, right? So I guess conclusions, right? There's lots of valuable stuff happening on Ethereum, both on the application layer and on infrastructure. There's some of the big themes: cross layer 2, privacy, continued work on mechanism design, identity, ZK. Things are also much more concrete than they were 5 years ago, right? Like 5 years ago, there was a lot of like more abstract discussion of like, oh, this will solve financial inclusion, this will solve supply chains, this will solve fraud. And I think the discourse has advanced a lot to these much more like specific applications where like you can't just go, like saying random words around and like, oh, this will make the the medical vaccine ecosystem more trusted because we put QR codes on things. And like, you have to like actually think and like have things that make sense in the real world and not just like, the GPT-4 world or whatever, right? Another, I think, thing is that this is an era where it's probably easier to come in and help and participate than it was 5 years ago. And the reason is precisely the fact that there is more of this focus on concrete stuff that's closer to the user. Basically, a lot of the deep tech has been solved, right? Or it exists and is being constantly improved. The problems that I talked about today, they're not really problems that involve building deep tech. They're problems that involve taking existing technology and just applying it in the right way, putting it together in the right way, and like packaging it in a way that actually makes sense to users, right? And this is the sort of stuff that the ecosystem, really needs right now. And so, if people want to work on any of this, then, I'd be, very, happy to see the results. So, thank you.
Just give the mic to. Oh. Amazing. Well, hope you enjoyed that giant brain dump of ideas you can work on. And there's a lot of people that actually already talked about doing some of these projects as you were filling out and signing up for this hackathon. So you can get a lot more feedback here from our mentors on all of these things, and everybody in the audience and everybody who's watching this live stream, especially a whole new bunch from Nigeria. Hope you enjoyed this talk. All right, next up, the last thing is prizes. I want to quickly list off all the amazing prizes that are being given off from all of our amazing partners. And just to summarize, over 325,000 Canadian dollars in prizes to be given away this weekend. And the gist of it is that you just heard about Gnosis Chain and WorldCoin giving 20,000 each. We also have Airstack, ApeCoin, Polygon, The Graph, Filecoin, and UMA giving $10,000 in prizes each. Yes, XDC, Sysmo, Unlock, Hyperlane, Near, Delve, and ERC6551 are also giving $10,000 in prizes each. And XMTP, RISC0, EAS, Unsheet, QuantStamp, and NounStyle, Maker, Lit, QuickNote, MetaMask, Compound, and Highlighter also giving $5,000 each for using their APIs or protocols for your projects to make your own life easier. You can check out all the specifics around what these prizes are. You can see all the details around what qualifies, the documentation, sample code. If you missed their workshops, you can learn how to use these. All that is on the website. So with that, pace yourself. We don't want this to be exhausting for you. Prioritize your health, and we really want you to have fun. So thank you so much, everybody, and let's get hacking.